Hey everyone, it's Shalene, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make Blanc style modern tech house. As usual, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI and presets, all that stuff in this video, right at the top of the description. And if you're patient on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Here we are. So yeah, the first sound we got going on here, we're at 125 BPM. It's this lead which sounds like this. So the way this is made, I'll show you. The notes are really simple. It's only a few notes. You don't want to go too crazy with the notes here. It's just something kind of simple and a bit rhythmic. It's almost kind of percussive if you really listen to it. I mean, that's the thing about the style, of course. It is so percussive. Every sound has to be really tight and sharp and rhythmic like this. So yeah, that's kind of the point of this. And then it's just in key with the track. We're in G minor. So yeah, you can see that for the sound with this one, it's made using operators. So what this is I actually have an FM bass here, this one. And I was playing around with that, and I came up with this idea where basically, usually when you're making a sound with FM, you would put the first oscillator like at whatever octave you want the sound to be playing at, and then you would play with the octaves of the other oscillators. But if you keep the other oscillators lower and bring the first oscillator higher, you can kind of get this interesting sort of thing going on where I'll show you what I mean. This is at 12 right now. I'll put it back to 1, or I'll put it at 0.5 so it's where the second one is, and then I'll just keep moving it up and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'll loop this too. See how it's getting this almost like a... it's almost as like an effect sound. And this could be a really cool way to make some cool effects for your tracks too, but like... there we go, and then you pitch it up, and then you can actually hear like a note with it. If I put it on, you can play stuff with it now. So, it's a pretty simple way to make some cool lead sounds, Like I said, with this style, you want interesting stuff. It has to have kind of a cool texture to it. It can't just be like a bare saw wave or a square wave. It has to be kind of interesting. So, it's a good way to make a sound like that. The other thing I've got going on with this is, I guess I turned this low pass filter down a little bit. And then I've got this LFO here on the pitch, which you can see it's just only on a little tiny bit. And this is just giving it that little, like, vibrato you hear if I turn this off. It's subtle, but it just adds something nice to the sound. Then we just have a bit of chorus and some echo, which is just giving it a bit of space. You can see this is really short. You don't want to use like a really long or like spacey echo with this, I just kind of went for something really quick. Sort of what you'd call like a slapback echo. And then just have a bit of drum bus to kind of beef it up and tie the whole thing together. And that's it for the lead. The next thing that we have here are all these little sort of background effects, vocal sounds, which sound like this. So what these are all the little like background things you hear like when we play the track. And these are what are keeping the track going. You can see like they're all hitting just kind of on different, like, on the 2 or on the 2 here or on the and of 4, I guess you would say there. And it just adds some kind of like movement and something interesting to the track, This is very subconscious. Like when you're hearing this in a track, you may not even always notice this stuff. This is why a lot of times when you're making a track and you hear a professional track, this is some of that stuff you might be missing, is like these little sounds, because you don't always notice them, but they're giving you something that's constantly moving and changing throughout the track. And if I turn this off, I'll show you what I mean. It gets kind of like, it's not flat, it just doesn't feel as exciting, and it won't hold up with other tracks. Like when they play this track on the dance floor, it'll kind of lose the energy. hear, like, you know, it's just kind of flat when you just have that stuff not in there. But when you add it gives it some character. So all this is just these little sounds. Like, I have this one vocals track where it's like, just these little random hits, you know, you can pull from really anywhere. You can even just like make these yourself. I've made some of these myself, and like, it's just like a reverb little sweep thing, but then you put it in there, and again, this is like that little extra stuff that's gonna make the big difference in terms of making your tracks sound professional. It's not hard to do this, you just have to know what to do, I think. You know, to add like that little reverse vocal hit there, just to give it the extra little depth. We have like these little effects too, this one. Kind of like some cool vintage sounding effects. These help because they add a lot of texture. And you can see I have like the echo and the auto filter and saturator on there, adding a lot of texture and characters to them too. And then I have this last one here, which is actually the same as this sound. But that one's reversed, and then I guess that one was the original, and then I reversed it to make that. And then I put it through, you can see like some really short reverb, auto filter, saturator. I have these going through a few effects individually. You can see this little verb thing just has a high pass. It doesn't really need too much. But, you know, just giving them a little bit of character, because you don't want it to just be completely dry. It's going to feel a little bit flat in the mix. But if you just give it a little bit of stuff, it can kind of make it fit in there a little bit better. And yeah, you can also see from here like the arrangement of how you want them to be. The other mistake I think people make with these sometimes, and I've definitely made this mistake before too, is not doing it enough. Like they might have like, you know, maybe just this and then like 4 bars and nothing else, or like maybe just this and this one or something like that. But you see how much needs to be happening. Like you really need to have something constantly moving, because again, this is what these tracks are doing. Like all the tracks that come out on these channels and from these different DJs and producers that you guys hear, they have these things happening. And so if you try to play your track after that, it's not going to hold up. The energy is going to be missing something, and this can really make or break a track. And yeah, after that, the next thing we have here is the kick, which sounds like this. So this is tech house kick, as I've called it. What this is just like that big, fat, boomy, almost a little bit clipped. You know, you can hear that crunchy mid-range in there. It's that type of kick, like you hear in a lot of these tracks. So this is the type of kick you want. It's just this quick, fat, hard-hitting kick. It's not gonna like be, you know, too clicky. It's not gonna be too much of like an EDM kick. It's just a nice, bassy, fat kick that works well with the bass and holds down the mix in the low end. And then I just have this going through a bit of drum bus. I don't even have that much saturation because it's already a pretty fat kick. It didn't need much. Plus it's going through stuff on the group, the bus I should say. But I do have this transient knob turned up, which really helps for the punch. So I'll turn this off and then turn it on. You can see, here's without it. And with it. And you can hear that, like, you know, just gives it that little bit more sort of like in the transient that I think really helps it to punch through the mix and sound strong. And also this helps like when you're mastering it and stuff too. Like, you know, when it's going through a limiter, that can sometimes give it a little bit, almost, I don't want to say it can make it like dull the transients, but it can definitely have that effect a little bit if you're like really hard limiting it. But if you have really strong transients going, you won't have that problem as much. So it's definitely important to pay attention to that stuff. The last thing here with the kick are like these little fills here, like these little and the. So those little things you definitely want to add at least every 4 bars. I've heard a lot of tracks do it every 2 bars or even every 1 bar if you want to make it like a cool kind of exciting thing in your track that's unique, I guess. But this just gives it some cool character, you know. It has that kind of like It's almost like an old school ravey sort of vibe to it, you know. I get like a kind of old school techno or old school tech house vibe from that, and it really like brings the track to life. It's just something that makes it cool when you hear that in a track. Next thing we have here is the bass, which sounds like this. So here's the bass line. I'll pitch it up so you can hear it. So you can hear this bass line is kind of like a hook. So this is something I want to touch on with the style. As you can hear in this track, you know, we have that lead, but for the most part, the bass really is that main thing that's going through the track. It's driving the low end, as well as, like I said, it's kind of the hook. So this is how you want to write these bass lines. You want to think about rhythm first. Like, usually the way I do it is I would write these out all as one note. Like, maybe it would just be this same pattern, but it's all just G. And then you can kind of move some notes from there. But yeah, like, if you just kind of, like, approach it from that angle, where you add, you know, just kind of something catchy here at the end, like this. This is what can really make your track very unique and make it exciting and very interesting, I think, and make it really stand out too when DJs play it. You know, one of the big criticisms of tech house is that a lot of tracks sound the same. But if you make something really unique and interesting with a simple, cool hook like this, it can really go a long way to make it not boring. So yeah, that's the other thing I want to talk about here. Not using a lot of notes. It's only 4 notes that I use for this bass line. I would usually even do just like 2 or 3, you know, if you can. Sometimes even 1 note if you just want to do like a rolling bass or something. And yeah, I'll pitch that back down. For the sound, like I said, this is made using FM, so what it is it's, you can see I'm just using all 4 oscillators here. All 4 of them are sine waves. I've got them, the first 3 are just at the original chorus pitch setting, and then I have the 4th one up to 4. So it's basically just kind of like this fatter version of a sine wave bass, and this is the kind of bass you hear in these types of tracks. So this is how you make it. You can use a lot of different methods, like you could filter square waves and saw waves and stuff like that. But this is a really great way to do it because you can add that kind of cool overtone to the sine wave. So I'll just show you, like, here's just the first oscillator. Then the second one. Third one adds that kind of overtone more as you go on, and then the 4th one kind of finalizes it. The other thing about this is, like, you don't want it to be too deep. You don't want it to be too much like a sine wave, because if you're playing this on your phone speaker, like, think about it. If these tracks are on YouTube, people are going to be playing it on their phone speakers and on, you know, kind of like cheaper headphones and stuff like that. So you need to be able to hear the bass as well as feel it, and adding these FM overtones can really help to do that. And yeah, then that's just going through a low pass filter. Got a bit of drum bus to beef it up. You can see it's on the hard setting, so it's hitting pretty hard. And then finally we have the compressor just side chaining it to the kick to make it kind of fit in. Then we have these two in a group together here. So here's without the saturator. And with it. So this is why I'm doing this. This is how you get your kick and your bass to really fit in the style of track. Like, when you hear these tracks, that's the thing. The low end is really holding the whole thing down. And this is how you do it. You know, you just have a very strong kick, a very strong bass, and then you saturate them nicely together. Maybe even compress them sometimes and EQ them. I didn't really feel like this needed that, you know. I like to keep it as clean as possible, to be honest. But the saturator is really all you need to just glue these together and make the low end work really well. And then this auto filter here is just for these little parts, like at the end of every 8 bars. These just help to kind of spruce up the arrangement. Like, if you have this little, like, you know, and the snare comes in, and then we have like this part. It's just a good way to keep the track going, because it can get boring if it's just the same thing over and over and over in the low end. Like I said, the low end is really a big part of these tracks, so you need to keep it exciting, and this filter can really do that. After this, we have the percussion, which sounds like this. Oh, I'll play it actually from here. So what we have here is, I'll start with the hi-hat. So we have like this one, just kind of like this fat hi-hat. You can see I pitched it up a bit, I've shortened it. You can see from the waveform it's a big hi-hat, and yeah, I've just kind of pitched it up a bit. I shortened it as well. You know, usually in these tracks, like I said, it's very short, tight, hard-hitting sounds with strong transients. So like if I open this back up, you can see it's not as punchy, it doesn't work as well as when it's shorter like that. And then I had this going through a super short reverb just to give it some ambience, drum bus, a bit of EQ. The second hi-hat is just playing like this. It's important to add stuff like this. This is kind of like going back to what I was saying with the effects, you know. These tiny little hi-hats are what make a difference, because really, it's mostly just this main hi-hat. Like, you know, this is a good way to have some background stuff still, without having to have like a whole top loop in the background. This is something that you can notice there's something in there, and it adds some nice finesse to it, but it's not just like, you know, like I said, dropping in a loop just to do it. And yeah, then from there we have the tambourine and this bell. So these are just playing like this. You know, like, I'll just show you for example, like, okay, here's just the kick and the bass. And then here's just the kick and the bass with the tambourine and the bell. Oh, whoops. There we go. See how, like, just having these kind of subtle percussion elements adds a lot of energy to the track? And they're really kind of just in the background. Like, if you don't really have a tuned ear, you may not even notice them, but you are feeling them. So it's important to add little stuff like this in the background again, like I said. So we just got those, you can see the effects on there, and then we just had this clap. Pretty standard, just like strong. Again, you just want a quick, punchy, hard-hitting transient. I boosted the highs a little bit because you can see they kind of rolled off a little. And then we have the percussion in a bus together. This is just like with the kick and bass. You know, I do this in a lot of these videos, but this is really the best way to get these things to sound really tight. Like, a lot of people ask, how do you make your sounds kind of sound like they fit together, like they're in the same world, so to speak? This is how you do that, is by putting them all through the same effects, because they're going to all get that same texture. So here's without anything. You can see it almost sounds a little bit flat. It's strong sounds, but it needs some glue. And then when you put that on, there you go. You know, it really glues it all together. It makes it hit hard enough to fit in the mix and stand up, because these are very simple tracks. There's really not much else in here from the effects, bass, kick, and then the percussion. So you need to make your percussion as big as possible to fill up all that space. And yeah, then the last thing we have down here is just this 909 snare and this crash. So the snare, you know, pretty standard sort of snare like you'd hear in these tracks. This is the ones they would do like those long fills with. And I've got it in here just playing like in a few parts, you know. It's just a nice way to add kind of like a fill element, because you don't really need it. You could like not have it, but when you add it, you know, it just adds a little bit more energy and excitement to the track. So I just got that going through, a bit of drum bus, a bit of EQ, and then for the crash, same deal, you know, it just adds a little bit more kind of energy and effects to the track. This is actually completely dry, you know, it's a pretty nice crash sample already. Just one of mine from my Tech House sample pack, which I'll link in the description. That'll be at the top as well. My definitive Tech House sample pack. It's good if you want the style. But yeah, so this is just like playing throughout the track basically. I just have it kind of like doing those fills like you hear honestly in a lot of deep house tracks, but people have kind of brought this over in the Tech House. It's a cool way to kind of add some effects to the track. But yeah, so that is everything that I have for you guys today, and that is going to be it for this video, everyone. So yeah, thank you so much. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file and samples and MIDI presets. Everything from this video is available in the description, so you can get a great template to start making your own tech house tracks with, and start out with something that sounds professional and kind of like understand what's really going on in these tracks, and not just have some sample pack that you can't really use. So yeah, link to that is at the top of the description. My definitive tech house sample pack is also there. That's a great way to support me, guys. Thank you so much, everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.